This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
So horrible things can happen to you. Like one of the worst things that happened was when I divorced. I had, that first night after I decided to leave my husband. That was really unpleasant, really difficult. But you have to believe in yourself and trust in your decision. And it is shitty, excuse the term. But if you think of it as manure, if anyone's made compost or made a garden with mulch and manure and fertiliser, I see that as an opportunity to recycle that bad stuff and put it into as manure into the compost, and then new growth can happen from that.
Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday, the pod that fearlessly chats about all things affecting us ladies who are 40 plus fabulous.
Well, and the guys that want to know what we think.
Well, them too. I'm Janet Evans, advertising creative.
And I'm Jenny Woodhouse, semi-retired social worker.
In other words, you're busier than ever. We're J&J and we're super thrilled you're with us for She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Well, gorgeous. To put our guest today into context, well, we're just going to dive straight in because we do have a personal best to achieve today. She is the only woman, man, or anyone in between who's held every single world freestyle record at the same time. That's just to put this in context, 100 metres, 200 metres, 400 metres, 800 metres, 1,500 metres, and the 200-metre individual medley at the same time.
That is incredible.
I know. I was pretty chuffed to come second in the 25-metre breaststroke at school. But this lady that we're going to be talking to, Shane Gould, you are one of the world's most incredible superstars of the sport. And we are thrilled to welcome you to She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Welcome, Shane.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I look forward to the chat today.
Well, actually, I was going to say you are Dr. Shane Gould because you have a PhD and you are AM and MBE, and I'm sure there's a few more letters after your name as well. But so very impressive.
Thank you. Yes, I did that study in finished it in 2019 and graduated from Victoria University with a PhD in the culture of swimming in Australia. So it was a cultural study and a Doctor of Philosophy. So, it was pretty hard work, but it was...
As hard as getting a gold medal in the Olympics?
Oh, it was very different, of course,
Yes.
Yeah,
I would have thought it'd be much harder.
Very different. Yeah, harder in a lot of different ways, yeah. Yeah, you can't really compare it. But yeah, look, being an athlete, it sets you up to be able to manage your time, to reset your goals, to just bide your time and know if you, like I wrote 150,000 words, but I had to bring it back to under 100,000. So
that's harder.
So that's really hard to know how to prune.
Yeah.
But managing my time and maintaining my curiosity. So that's another thing about my swimming. But I had some really good coaches and my parents who supported me, and I was a fairly mature sort of teenager, but I was able to. They sort of gave me a bit of free rein to manage my own time, and some of that was curiosity, like how can I get better? So even though I'm the best in the world at the time, how can I keep ahead of everyone else? So I think that curiosity was turned to other things in my life, such as the PhD.
Yeah, and pushing through the pain barrier of the PhD, I imagine, was a big deal.
It's pretty mentally and emotionally draining.
It's really interesting what you're saying about being an athlete, sort of setting you up for future life and applying those principles in everything else you do. But, I mean, you did start incredibly early. So at the age of 15, you did what no Australian male or female or anyone in between had ever done. You won 3 individual gold medals at a single Olympics. That was Munich, 1972. All of them in world record time. You also, just casually, won a silver and a bronze. And you then set 11 world records before retiring. And as we know, you're still the only swimmer in history to hold all of those freestyle world records at the same time.
Amazing. Do you remember that?
I don't think that could happen again because people are specialising.
Yeah.
There are some remarkable people like Katie Ledecky and even Ariane Titmus, the Australian girl. They can do, say, 200, 400, 800 or 400, 800, 1500, but not to anyone to go from the shorter distances to the longer distances. There's just too much competition these days. But look, back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of the female swimmers were teenagers. It was really hard there was no commerce, no commercial opportunities in those days until 1984. It was purely amateur. So it was really hard on families, to support an athlete in the family, to travel, to buy swimsuits, often paying coaching fees. Yes, if you got on a team, yes, the Australian or state bodies would pay your airfares and travel and accommodation. But just going, say a swim meet every Friday night, and it was difficult for families to support teenagers or to support yourself if you finish school when you're 17 or 18, because there weren't those commercial opportunities. And in some of the men, Australian men, could go to American universities but then Title IX in 1973 allowed women, there was a lot more women in university sports in the US. So some women from Australia were able to go to university in the late 70s, but it really didn't get a good roll on until the 80s. So it was really difficult, for people to stay in the sport. When you're about 14 or 15 as a girl, your fat to muscle ratio is pretty low compared to a boy, and so it's well known that teenage girls have a greater capacity for training than boys do. So that's why in swimming, as the swimming gets better, they often divide the groups up. So there's a male group and a female group, because a 14-year-old boy getting beaten by a 12-year-old girl, can lose a lot of confidence. Or even a 16-year-old boy, if they're slow to develop, might only be as fast as a 14-year-old girl and not be able to cope with the training.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that they understand now that they didn't. But anyhow, back to my era, there was no, it was all amateur. And it was mostly teenagers who competed.
That's fantastic. It's so interesting. I vividly remember I was 13 when you were in the Munich Olympics, and watching you win all those races and just thinking to myself, gosh, if I was going to do that at 15, I'd have to start now. Training.
I'd have to start before I was born.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering, at what age did you start thinking, actually, I'm really good at this?
And how did it come about? Were you sort of identified in the pool as being just so much better than everybody else?
Look, from when I was 7 years old, I won the under-7 Nandi Airport School swimming champion.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Fiji.
Family lived in Fiji. My dad had a job at Nandi Airport working for Pan Am, and it was a great free-range lifestyle there, and did a lot of swimming and just running around, climbing trees, getting strong generally. And so I went in swimming, did swimming races at school and was identified, and there's actually that little trophy, the under-7 school swimming champion, is still in the office at the Nandi Airport School.
I was going to see it.
So yes,
Gorgeous.
Most athletes, they get identified, quite early. They're a good runner, or they're really good with a ball, or they're really good at swimming. So it's quite early. And so when you're a kid that age, you start to get praise and encouragement, and think, this must be important. To be good must be important. Right. And so you just keep doing it because you get attention, you get praise. And so I think it all begins there for anyone who's good at anything. And quite young, if you keep being good, well, it gets reinforced. So when I was 9 or 10, the family moved back to Sydney, and my sister and I, I had 3 sisters, so there were 4 of us. Well, my mother had house help in Fiji. So when she came back to Australia, she didn't have house help. So she was run ragged trying to manage 2 highly active girls, a 10 and a 12-year-old. And so the only way that our energy could be burnt off, rather than climbing the mango trees and, riding our bikes around the airport, she put us into swimming 3 times a week. So that was the only thing that made us tired enough so she could cope.
What a brilliant background.
Yeah.
We were expecting some deeply scientific sort of, institute kind of vibe, but, they just burn their energy off quick.
Yeah. So from that, really. Of course, you go from year to year, or even season to season, from the winter season to the summer season. And so gradually you increase the training, increase the number of races you go in, and refine your technique and start to really shine in more advanced, difficult competitions, like go from metropolitan to perhaps the junior state, and so on, until I was able to qualify, with my times to go on the Australian National Championships when I was 13, I think, and I got 6th place in the 100-metre freestyle, and then the next year I won it. When I was 14.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so
wow.
It happened
crazy.
Pretty quickly, but it was quite a progressive thing. But I really encourage parents, with a talented kid, or even someone who's interested in playing a sport, just to go from season to season, rather than thinking, in 10 years' time I want to go to the Brisbane Olympics. To think, well, okay, what's next season? Now, when are the school swimming races? When are the club championships? When's the grand final? And so work towards season to season, and it's much more achievable. Kids can get really discouraged if their goals are 2, 3, 4, 10 years ahead. So I would encourage parents.
I can imagine that winning and getting better would bring you joy, but did the training bring you joy, or was it just hard slog?
Yeah, look, I love the whole thing. I love being physical. So even now, I don't mind cleaning, because you're bending and stretching and scrubbing and lifting and twirling.
Yes, okay.
So it can
I'll give you my address later. Yeah.
And I have horses now, and so you're shoveling manure or lifting a saddle up, and vigorously brushing your horse and carrying hay and feed buckets, and there's life is physical. And so I think being an athlete, it was kind of a dance, and often athletes, when they finish their sport, they fall into a slump. And I'll talk a bit more about that, about a book I wrote.
Sports career transition. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that later. But some of the problems that athletes have when they finish their sport is they don't keep being athletic. So I encourage athletes, because it's in their nature, as I've described in Fiji, and when I moved back to Sydney, and in my life since, it's been a very physical life, because I need to do that. I need to express myself in a physical way to be satisfied, because that's how I engage with the world.
That's really helpful.
Like when you were just at that age, that year before the Olympics, so you were only 14, so you had these coaches called Forbes and Ursula Carlisle. So how were they chosen for you, and how did they prepare you for this incredibly huge event?
Because of the nature of my father's work, he was in management and marketing. We spent some time in Sydney until I was about 12, and then we moved to Brisbane for a year and a half, and that's where I started to nudge Australian qualifying times. And so then he changed his job to move back to Sydney, and so he gave me a choice. My parents could see that I was really keen, dedicated, ambitious, self-directed, and they gave me an opportunity to choose, where do you want to train? Do you want to train with Don Talbot out in Western Sydney, or Forbes Carlisle near Ryde? So I went and did a test training session and meet Don Talbot. And then I did a test training session with Forbes Carlisle, and I chose Forbes because I felt I could relate to him better, and I liked the training, the training design and that Forbes presented. Forbes was a scientist and Don was more militaristic, and I liked Forbes's scientific way and his way of explaining, but he wasn't overbearing either. He knew how to relate. No, he was a bit of a geek himself and had a bit of trouble socially relating to people, but it was perfect for me. And his wife, Ursula, she usually trained the junior kids, but she was there on the deck at competitions, and she'd often massage my shoulders, and then she became the assistant coach for the Munich Olympic team. So she was there. So it was my choice, but my parents, in their wisdom, gave me that opportunity to make the choice of which coach to go with, and I just was in tune with him, with the style of coaching and the style of training, the training sets that he presented.
So when you say scientific, what sort of things was he doing with you? And actually, how much training were you doing? What did that look like for you?
Well, I swam before school and after school, so about 2 hours morning and night, so about 4 hours a day, and doing in the old money about up to 40 miles a week, which is round about the amount that some swimmers do. The distance swimmers often do more these days, and they do a lot of dryland training. But see, I was still at school, so I did all the school sports. So I was playing hockey and cross country and gymnastics. And
wow.
So I think that really helped.
But did they guide your stroke in a particular way, or your kicking or anything like that?
Yeah. I had a bit of like the country girl coming to the city, a rough sort of stroke that they ironed out some of the obvious things that were slowing me down. So I spent 6 weeks with a coach while Forbes was away in 1970 at the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh, and I had 6 weeks with a particular coach, getting used to the training program there and the rhythm of life, and so he straightened me out. And then Forbes continued that. But what Forbes was doing, it's common these days to know about heart rates, recovery rates, as a feedback on your fitness levels. We didn't drink, we didn't understand hydration, but Forbes was very interested in how what the heart was doing and the heart rhythms. So he would regularly test me on the ECGs and just what the recovery and all the different spikes. I just don't understand it, but it was good. But
okay, they're all physical kind of aspects to your training. What about the emotional, psychological aspects to the training? Was it a very competitive environment, and how did you find that?
Oh, incredibly competitive, but I rose to that. I really liked that. It was like sharpened my wits, and I didn't always win, so I think that's important to be able to lose as well. And so I knew how to lose as well as to win. But I think my mother and father were very good in helping me with all those things. My mother was a social worker, and
we love social workers.
That's because Jenny's a social worker.
Okay, yeah. Well, she had a really good sense of people, and she was going to yoga classes, and she was interested in Buddhism. So I think that idea of mindfulness, that is very common now. I think she imparted that to me, and how to use my breath. Then my father was a huge motivator. So because he was in marketing, he could sell ice to the Eskimos.
Anything.
So tell us what it's like as a 15-year-old to arrive at the Olympics. I mean, we mere mortals, we can't imagine that because we've never been there. Well, Jenny doesn't compete there that often, but to just be there with the best athletes in the world, what is that like?
Look, there's nothing like the Olympics. There's no other competition like it because there's so many so many different sports there. So if you have a world championships in swimming, there's only swimmers there. There might be, like at the moment in Singapore, the world championships, you've got the synchronized swimmers, the divers, the water polo players, the long distance swimmers, the open water swimmers, as well as the pool swimmers. But at the Olympics, you have all the sports, all the Olympic sports, and from people from all over the country, all over the world. And then the prestige of the Olympics puts more pressure on. So in some senses, that winning the gold medal was more important than the times. But I always was really interested in times. But the gold medal certainly came into it. So it's a very festive. It's nationalistic. It's patriotic. It's idealistic. There's John Hoberman, a specialist in the Olympic movement. and drugs in sport, John Hoverman said it was an inspirational internationalism. So he put it in historical context, and I didn't read about that till the 90s when he coined that concept. So if you think the Olympic Games is an inspirational thing, and it's very international, with a lot of patriotism involved and nationalism, So arriving there with my own personal expectations, I was the fastest in the world, or close to fastest in the world in the 5 events that I was entered. So I had high expectations for myself, and certainly the country at home, the team members, and then the Americans who tried to stop me from being able to win. So they put out a T-shirt called, said, "All that glitters is not Gould."
Gould.
Oh,
yeah.
yes,
So I pun
that's
on that.
fantastic.
Clever advertising
But,
person.
the coach of the American women's swim team, I forget his name now, I think that Led Zeppelin had just put out that song, Highway to Heaven, and there's some debate about if they were talking about selling drugs or not, but there was a line in that, about all that glitters.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I think he was trying to relate to his team members and of course, a pun on my name. So I had that to deal with. But when I saw that and was told about it, I thought, great, they're worried about me. So it fueled my own self-confidence and sense of domination. So, look, I think teenagers can be really smart, really sharp about what's going on around them. And so I think that, with quite a lot of travel experiences that I'd had, living with, in Fiji with Canadians, Americans, Fijians, New Zealanders, Indians, Polynesians, so I had experience of being with people of different cultures and also different age groups, so when, in sport, in country sport, it's quite well known that there are kids who come from the country often have to make up teams. So you might be a 14-year-old, but the under 16 team needs another player. So a 14-year-old might play with the 16-year-olds, or your 17-year-olds play with the adults. So they get experience in competing with adults and stiffer competition than just your own age group. That was some of my experience. Yeah, having experience with older sports. I remember in Fiji when I was quite good at netball, and I was a good shooter and a good defender. So I often played goal defence. I think, and sometimes goal attack. But I was brought in to play with the under-11 team to go to Lautoka, from Nandi to Lautoka, to play a game there. And the Fijian girls were like grown women.
Huge. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
They were so fast and quick and sharp and manoeuvrable and it was a bit of a come down because I thought I was a hot shot.
Pretty hot stuff.
But did you win? That's the important thing.
No, we didn't know the Fijian girls. I took
smashed you.
Primary school one. So those sorts of experiences, I keep talking about those things because I think that it's really important for us as women to be confident in our childhood experiences and the influences. We might not be aware of them.
Shane, I wonder if we could actually just take you back to those Olympics, because I've always wondered, like, when the swimmers come out on the deck and they're wearing all their fluffy robes and all that stuff to keep warm, it must be really cold out there, I assume. But then you stand on those blocks and you're looking at the other end of the pool, and what is going through your mind in that split second before when they say, on your marks, and they might have even had a real gun in those days, I'm not sure.
Yeah, possibly,
Yes.
What are you running through your plan, like how my plan for the 1500, or are you just completely blank and just going, oh, I hope I win?
As you've probably seen, some people like to listen to motivational music, and they get into their own little world of, with their big headphones on and listening to some sort of music that amps them up. I preferred silence and just retreating to my own little world. This was, for an hour or even the afternoon of the event, just avoid people and avoid stimulus, just get into my own rhythm and space of emotional collectedness. And so by the time I get to the blocks, I've probably rehearsed the race somewhat. been able to talk myself down, like my mother taught me, how to manage my emotions. There's the positive self-talk or just the calming down, breathe. And then sometimes I've had to get on the blocks and say, okay, Shane, this is 100 metres, just 2 laps freestyle, okay? Because I was in so many events.
Oh, yes.
One can
to
fold into
remind
the
yourself
other.
what you were.
It's not a 4-lap medley race, so you don't dive in and
And it's
come
not
up
a
doing
50,
butterfly.
so
Don't stop at the other
50.
end.
That's right.
It might be as a simple thing as that, but certainly it's you collect yourself to be able to perform under the pressures, so you have to have layers of awareness of the crowd. So you have to be responsible to the crowd and acknowledge them because they're cheering you on and there to support you. Or support the event, whether it's you or your competitor. There's another layer of being physically ready. So make sure your body's sort of loose and warm, and then your mind is ready for the challenge, and then your emotions, you're controlling your emotions, but you're ready to just blast out and give it your all, and maybe swim faster or than you've ever done before, and be ready for a new experience. And then being able to respond in the moment. And so that's race and even live practice. Things pop up, say if you're in an interview for a job or dealing with a difficult customer, you have to make a decision and say something in the immediacy of the moment to deal with that situation. It's the same in a swimming race. You get a mouthful of water and you don't breathe on that stroke. So you have to, rather than saying, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
This is a problem, but not to get overwhelmed by it. So I think there's so many metaphors and so many transferable skills from being a sporting competitor that you can take to the rest of life. And, it's over 50 years ago that I did compete, but I can remember vividly some of those experiences. Certainly I've talked about them a lot, and that helps you to remember things. I remember viscerally some of the experiences that are so in my cells and in my memory that that I might have an experience, for example, like dealing with a difficult customer, and I think alert, but deal with it. So, or recognise that, like in preparing for this interview, I was a bit grumpy because I
Deal with it. Deal with it.
So, chill, Shane, chill. Get it done. So for me as an athlete and being a thoughtful person, a considered person, I try to see value in my past experiences. And so, of course, in life, shit happens. Excuse the term. But you think of manure, okay? So horrible things can happen to you. One of the worst things that happened was when I divorced. I had, that first night after I decided to leave my husband. That was really unpleasant, really difficult. But you have to believe in yourself and trust in your decision. And it is shitty, But if you think of it as manure, if anyone's made compost or made a garden with mulch and manure and fertiliser, I see that as an opportunity to recycle that bad stuff and put it into as manure into the compost, and then new growth can happen from that.
Yes.
Shane, I feel like you should be a life coach and talk to many, many, many different areas.
I think Shane is a life coach.
That's
Well,
true.
you're providing the opportunity for me
the
to
manure.
say these things.
Thank you. How old were you when you decided to leave your husband?
Mid-40s.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was married quite young. So we'd been married about 22 years. So
Right. About 22. That's
had
what an
kids.
enormous decision.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it was rocky times, for a few years, and then you reconcile, and then life goes on, and then eventually, decided it was not a healthy place for either of us to remain in. And sometimes don't know what the future is going to be, but you just know that there's a great book that that was helpful to me. Was two too good to leave, too bad to stay, or something like
yes.
Yes. So I think that's a really helpful thing to, rather than, you can't sort of weigh up. You can't really say you've got 60% to stay and 40% to leave. You've got to look at each aspect. Am I sleeping well at night? Am I feeling like I'm loved and cared for? Am I showing compassion and empathy to my partner? So you look at all the different things. Do we enjoy sharing the same things still? Are we communicating on a deep and meaningful level? So you ask questions like that, and then you think, well, no, none of those things are happening. Okay, can you make it right? Can you try? Well, you try, but then if it's still not working, you think, okay, it's too bad to stay. Yeah. Or
and
it's still too good to leave.
How excruciating.
Speaking of too bad to stay, you actually decided to retire from swimming at the ripe old age of 16. So it was obviously too bad to stay. Talk us through that. Why did you make that decision?
Well, I think that remember that I said that I had 3 sisters and they had their needs. My older sister was academic, so she needed to go to university. She had her needs. I had 2 younger sisters also who had their goals and needs for their sport and their recreation. And I started to feel that and I think my mother was pretty keen about going back to work, but she couldn't because she needed to be cook and counsellor and chauffeur, and so she was keen to go back to work. And there was a huge amount of pressure on the family with the media. So my parents would answer phone calls from Turkey at 2:00 in the morning. Wanting an interview.
Goodness.
Wow.
Wow.
So I just sensed that I'd had my fair crack of the whip, the fair share of the family finances and attention, and I started to feel some jealousies and pressures. That was one thing. The other thing was that after the Olympics, I went to California, and I went to a high school. My dad had a business associate who Dad had helped to set up Angus Park, dried fruit industry on the Murray. And this family hosted me for a few months in California, in Los Altos, actually, Mountain View and that area. And when I was there, the family were a Catholic family, and I'm not Catholic. I was interested in spirituality. My mother was, we used to go to the Methodist church in Sydney, and my father's father was a Methodist minister. Even though they both, stopped believing in Christianity, they still had a spiritual bent, and they became very interested in Buddhism and Hinduism. So there was that air of flavour of curiosity about philosophy and religion or spirituality. And so when I went to this school, Mountain View High School in California, the Catholic school, they talked about ethics and philosophy, and it just woke me up. Just my spirit woke up, my brain woke up, and I thought, wow, this is really, really interesting. And there's the competing and bodily effort and success and the ego, it didn't seem quite as important as being a seeker of philosophy, understanding ethics, morality, spiritual things. So I think that was the main driver. When I was away, I had a huge amount of independence. I got my driver's license when I was there, and they gave me a Pontiac to drive around in, and just this freedom that I didn't know how to discipline myself. And so I put on quite a bit of weight. I wasn't doing as much training. I did train with a team there, so I wasn't burning as much calories. I was eating more. I'd probably stopped growing. So I put on weight. And so I was really unfit when it came to come back to Australia to prepare for the World Swimming Championships. I think it was the first World Swimming Championships, and I was just too much out of shape, and I was discouraged. But my interest in other things had been stirred, so I just couldn't motivate myself to keep going. And then at the same time, Adidas. They've developed a swimsuit line called Arena. Now, Arena's a separate company to Adidas now, but it was started by Adidas. And they approached me to endorse a line of swimwear. So Mark Spitz, who was very successful in 1952,
I was in love with Mark Spitz. Yes.
Yeah, pretty nice bod.
Yeah.
And the moustache. Yeah. So Gillette paid him, a lot of money to shave off his moustache. And he had so he was 22 and he went pro. So as soon as you earned any money, you couldn't compete anymore. So I was offered a contract with Arena and to promote these things, promote the swimwear. So I had to make a choice whether to be independent and financially independent and then have travel experiences going to Europe because it was a European company, to travel to Europe, learn about sales and marketing and fashion, I guess, as well. And the science of new swimsuits. So it was the first line of swimsuits that had Lycra in them.
Mm.
So up till then it was, so DuPont, I think in 1973, DuPont made available Lycra for clothing. Yeah, so it was quite a change. And so I had to make a decision. I consulted with my father. My father was always about adventure. My mother was more about that personal development and modesty and controlling the ego but also being responsible, like noblesse oblige. She said, in some way, Shani, you're like the nobility, and like it or not, this fortune has come to you, so you need to be responsible to it. Okay, it's your lot in life. It's like your cross to bear, in a sense. And she used all those sort of biblical and psychological metaphors, and then just the practical thing of money, So there was a lot going on. Plus, I'd spent 6 months or 5 months in America, doing what I liked when I liked, and what, 16 or 17.
That was attractive.
Teenagers,
yes,
to come home and go under the thumb of the family life again. And so I kind of rebelled by saying, no, if I turn professional, it means the decision is made for me, and I will have independence. So there was a lot of things going on there that forced the decision. And I was approached by Speedo. There was a man called Neil Ryan who was the representative for Speedo, which was an Australian company at the time, and he offered an alternate. He said, "Look, Shane, if you want to leave school, you want to learn about the swimsuit industry, the marketing, and he could provide me with a job that where I was paid for the work, but not necessarily for an endorsement." And I had to weigh up that. Do I go with Speedo or go with Arena? So I write in my book that to make a really big life decision like that when you're 16, and I'm sure many people have made big life decisions at that age. So I'm no different. But this one, for me, I didn't know what to do, but it was up to me to decide. So I got in my little car and drove. I was in Armidale. My parents had moved to Armidale, into the country by then. And my two younger sisters went to PLC there, I think. My older sister was at uni in Sydney. And I drove out of the town and came across a bridge with a creek running in it. And I went down under the bridge, stripped off naked, and just lay in the cold water flowing over my body. And
what time of year was this?
It was round about October. It was still pretty chilly. But it was only about a foot deep. So when I was in the water there, I thought, well, I still really like swimming. I don't have to stop swimming. I can swim any time I like, but I just won't be competing. But I weighed up the opportunity. I decided to go with Arena and leap into the unknown. So I find that when I make decisions, I go to my body. I go to a bodily experience, and that sort of sets me. It helps me to think clearly, to think rationally, but to think with my intuition and visceral knowledge that you can have from that.
But having said all that, I mean, you actually did come back to competing because you were in the Masters competitions in 2003. I reckon people like me might have, considered entering something like that and gone, I smashed that 25-metre breaststroke back in the day. But then I would have seen your name on the list and gone, maybe I'll do the track and field.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. That was sort of an event I went in to test myself, and master swimming and master sports were just getting going, getting some momentum, and same with open water swimming and all these ocean swims. And after I was invited in to participate in the 2000 Olympics opening ceremony. So I was one of the 7 great female athletes. It was the 100th anniversary of women at the Olympics. So there was no women competing in 1896, but from 1900, women competed. So
wow, okay.
So they made a thing of the great Australian female athletes in the history of the Olympics at Sydney, and so I carried the torch in about 200 metres of the in the opening ceremony. That was a time where I started to do some more public commercial work. So I remember I'd divorced, probably 2 years before. And like a lot of women, I had no savings, our income was shared, our assets were shared. And, at one stage I picked wildflowers just to be able to pay for a passport to go overseas.
Wow. Goodness.
So, but it was, we lived a simple life deliberately and consciously. And it worked until it didn't.
Yeah.
So I was quite happy to see a sustainable income in the build up to the 2000 Olympics.
Right.
And then participate in that opening ceremony. I was thinking of it now. I was competing. You compete against people with the same
like
times,
us.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah,
no, not like that.
So you get entered. Yeah. And so I was in this race with this woman who was about 6 or 8 years younger than me, but she was the wife of an old boyfriend.
Okay.
How bizarre. Did you win?
Okay. So
did you beat her?
I had to beat her.
Yeah, definitely.
It
That was your
nearly-
motivation.
It nearly killed me.
But you
It was
did
a
it.
200 medley. But, there's funny things that motivate
Oh,
you.
my goodness. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Forget about art and philosophy.
Yeah,
No,
no.
I want to beat this. I want to beat the
Yeah.
pants off this person. Gorgeous, Shane. Are you in touch with the current coaches and swimmers of the current teams? And will our Olympians for 2026 call you for advice? do you think?
No. No, I'm not. There are a lot of people who are more connected. I think you need to live in Brisbane or the Gold Coast or Melbourne, to have those sort of regular connections. And I haven't always been a positive support, I've been a little bit
Is that right?
curmudgeonly.
I'm
About
sure controversial.
about some things. So that's a whole story in itself. But I think just through the logistics of distance, that old tyranny of distance again.
Yeah.
But what I have written, I've written my autobiography. It's not available anymore. It's out of print. But last year I did did this, did a writing project, and I wrote this in 60 days and learned a lot about writing. And then I decided I'll go through the whole process of self-publishing and self-marketing, but I'm stuck on the marketing. Just last week I tried to connect with Kieran Perkins, the head of Sport Australia.
Oh, okay.
But I don't have his direct phone number. And I'm used to people contacting me and not me going out to contact other people to make connections.
Yes.
So my plan in the future is whenever I meet someone in authority, I need to get their personal phone number.
Absolutely.
That's why you've got our numbers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So look, I'm hoping that I might be able to speak to not just the swimming groups, but athletes in general. Liz Doden is a fantastic breaststroker, shone in the 1996 and 2000 and 2004. She recently shared, her feeling of depression. And, so we keep hearing more and more stories. And so I think my book can speak to those people. And there are players associations, like the Footballers Players Association. And so I think if I can get an audience with those people. But, as I was writing it, I realised, oh, my God, transitions. Life is full of transitions. So work career transitions, a transition when your children leave home and you've got an empty nest. That can be really challenging. Like my daughter at the moment, her oldest son is 21 and the girl's nearly 19, and she's off travelling the world and he's studying at uni and she's got no children at home anymore. So she's starting to deal with that. What is my purpose? What is the what is the meaning of life for me? And so that life is full of transitions. Moving home, changing jobs, re-educating yourself, adjusting to job retirement, adjusting to perhaps health. You might have some arthritis and you can't move like you used to before. There's so many transitions in life. So as I was writing the book, I realised that this is really relevant to anyone, any human being going through transitions, but I wrote it specifically for athletes preparing to retire and then actually retiring. But calling it a transition, it's not a hard end.
Like, did you find yourself that you went through some kind of slump, some mental challenges after you finished competing?
Yes, for a while, until I had 2 experiences that gave me a greater sense of purpose and understanding and meaning in life. One was I took up surfing. So I met a man who eventually became my husband, and I started being physical again. And I could use the water. I could be physical and just frolic and, surf. So I learned how to surf, do stand-up surfing and kneeboard surfing and longboard surfing. And so that became, my recreation with my then to become husband. So that really boosted me and it gave me a different sense of purpose. And there was a community, all the surfers were a little bit anti-establishment at that time. So I picked up that, and then there was the cool clothing and the slang and the lifestyle. And so that was really helpful. But the other thing that occurred was I had a religious experience. I could call a conversion experience where I had a Christian experience where I felt God came into my life, both intellectually, socially, and I joined a youth group at the Wesley Central Mission in Sydney.
Yep.
Just switching communities and exposing myself to a community that other than the sporting community or the school community, just again another transition. And so I think those 2 things really shifted my thinking and helped me to manage that the kind of a loss of that sense of purpose and recognition. I had to go and become more than Shane Gould, the swimmer.
Yes.
Yeah, very wise. As 40 plus fabulous women, we know swimming does give us lots of benefits because we all hear about them: cardio, low intensity, meditation. What's your advice for how much we should swim and how far?
Well, some people just love to go, just one.
That's me. That's for sure.
One arm after the other. And if that's the case, I would probably only swim a few times a week. But if you're doing shorter sessions, shorter distances, like shorter duration, well, then you can probably do more sprinty things in it. Even if you're doing really long distances, like if you're swimming for an hour and you're doing 3 or 4 kilometres in an hour, I would interrupt it. Stop, do some other stroke, change your speed. You might just do 5 strokes really fast and then keep going. But add variety add variety to it, and then the whole experience will become more dense. So if you're doing shorter sessions, like half an hour in the water, or even sometimes I only swim for 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes that's because it's cold in the ocean. There's no pool where I live. I try to get my heart rate up, and we call it puff. Try to get yourself into a level of puff. So you might have a high puff, a medium puff, a low puff, and then you have your all-day swimming. So I think if you
all-day swimming.
Yes. So you could
I can't imagine.
Just keep swimming, for a long time without too much effort. Yeah. So I have trouble getting my heart rate over 100 when I swim. So I have to really I have to push myself to get it to 120, 125, and I can't get it over 142.
Right.
Wow.
My heart rate just goes up thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right.
So that's what I would recommend. Vary it. Do different strokes. Do some breaststroke. Do some backstroke. Do some, swim underwater, and do some fast. Do some slow. Change your spine shape. Do some dolphining through the surface or underwater.
Yes.
Just really vary it, and then I think you'll get a lot more benefit physically from that. Of course, you've got to have your social time afterwards. That's just as important.
Absolutely.
That's why I
You
go
gotta have the coffee.
Absolutely.
Gorgeous. Well, I have a question for you that I don't think you've ever been asked before, and this is between us and the testing committee, but we hear you like licorice. So was that your secret weapon at the pool in the Olympics? Were you tested for that?
Share it with us. Tell it.
When I was really interested in learning about nutrition, one of the commentators said that if you have a craving for something, you've probably got a lack of the minerals. So whatever the minerals are in licorice and chocolate.
Yeah, and chocolate. Right, okay.
Now you're talking.
So chocolate-covered bullets. Chocolate-covered bullets are often my favourite. So then I've got to start taking my multivitamin tablets again.
Yes, that's right. They do look like capsules, actually, don't they?
They do.
Yeah, well, they will be testing for that in future
Do
Olympics.
they sell that at the shop down the road? I think we might go get some.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for chatting with us today on She Wasn't Born Yesterday. We could have chatted for so much longer because you're involved in so many other areas and arts and photography, and you won Survivor, and there's so many dimensions to you.
That was a weird thing.
We'll get you back just to talk about
Survivor
Survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's. We might have a part 2. We might have to have a follow-up race. I think, we'll have a long distance one this time.
Well, thanks for the great questions and the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Janet, we love hearing from people, don't we?
Even more than I love you.
So to leave us a message, go to hope1032.com.au, She Wasn't Born Yesterday podcast, and hit us up on the little Get in Touch box at the bottom of the page.
Doing that right now.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Hope 1032. Thanks for listening.